being stated.
So just so I understand, I'm going to ask you kind of make a statement in the form of a question. So this means that since the revenue number, unsurprisingly, yet again, is off, that the expenditures less revenue number is off, and therefore the amount that we think we need to ask the taxpayers to cover is off. Is that a summation of where we're at?
It is, yes, that is correct, because what the budget number that was voted had already reduced it by the on behalf payments that go to the technical centers, and a small number that really, as Priscilla suggests, is probably immaterial. It's a $42,000 revenue that you receive for a math teacher.
Got it.
So the concern from my perspective is that you will not raise sufficient money in taxes or in your education spending grant unless you state the budget pre-removing those revenues.
Okay, because, and again, don't me just follow up, I'm asking everyone's indulgence here, but I'm this guy not here. So we have known for a while with a fair level of precision what our expense number is. And I don't think there was a disagreement on the allocations we wish to make. So if that's the case, and we knew, we've been telling each other for a while that the revenue numbers were wobbly, and we've wondered how trustworthy they were going back now some months. It sounds like that is still being clarified, and you're suggesting that because, in fact, the revenue number is, as we have it in the budget now, is off. This is really almost a technical issue that we need that if we still agree that the expense side is right, we just need to correct the math so that the net is correct. So would that be a fair way of saying that?
Jack, one of the ways that I understand it is that we show the on behalf as part of the expenditure, but then it was taken out too soon, and so therefore, and I'll own that of not knowing, because I was told that it had to be a net zero, but we have to show it so we can raise the revenue to pay it.
Yeah.
Because we're responsible for that portion of it, and so that's the reason for it's a little less than $300,000. I think it's like 257 or something of that nature. And so that's the reason for it, is that we do show in the budget that we presented to you the on behalf as an expense, but then we took it out too soon.
Yeah.
And that's what lowered that 7 million. And so what Glenn was counseling us to do was to add that back in on the tax sheet so that we ensure that we raise the revenue to pay that portion.
Yeah, it has to be in the tax sheet. There's okay. That I understand. So
it's not that the revenue is unknown. It's just that it was taken out too soon. So I just wanted to clarify that piece.
No, I hear the difference. I'm just suggesting that if this is really a technical issue and shouldn't affect the amount, it's not affecting the amount of money we think is necessary to run the school. This is which we voted on to run the school. This is really a matter of the bottom of that tax sheet.
Yeah, and
getting that number correct.
And just so let me just do some real quick. 9, 2, 9, 6, 9. It's a difference of spending the spending per equalized pupil. It would be a
Yep.
difference of $636.36.
Let me just say for the record, we have failed to make this in the past. We did one year when Needy Cole was here, and it was an oversight, and it actually and because we didn't do it, we put us over the threshold without anybody realizing it. So I'm glad this got caught. And I would, when we get to the point of, since what we have warned was a budget for a certain dollar amount, and this isn't going, that dollar, do we have to increase that dollar amount to clean this up? Is that what the bottom line is?
Yeah, so we're talking, so the difference, the original agreed upon was $7,023,723. And the new number is $7,300,000.
2 minutes, I'll be right there.
$310,995.
Okay, that helps me out. I got to step into the next room to take a call for a client, and it'll take me 2 minutes and be right back with all of you.
So we cannot do anything because we can't get another board member. Unless there really is some kind of clause where we can have an emergency meeting, but I would have thought that would have had to have been announced before now. David Clark, can you help me with that legality?
Molly, the best advice I can give you is you can call an emergency meeting at any time. You certainly need to be able to justify it. However, my understanding is that we have a drop dead date of this afternoon before the town clerk's office is closed in order to warn this timely for the date that we've chosen for our annual meeting.
So
Absolutely
can
right.
can I declare this meeting an emergency meeting, or do I have to shut this meeting down and start another one?
You need
You're
a quorum to
smiling.
hold an emergency meeting, Molly.
You still need a quorum.
Yeah, because you don't have a quorum. I mean, you have two means of, you can not adjourn this meeting. You can, in which case you can simply say we're going to reconvene at, and you can do that, Molly. I'm still not sure why we would be increasing that though, because I think our budget is plenty full of enough support there. We are cutting the director of special, of counseling services, and that's a huge amount of money that should be decreased. And we're not seeing as much of a decrease in the actual high school portion of the budget versus the SU part of the budget that's coming into for us. So I'm feeling like there has to be extra there that, we don't need to go up and put all of this in, but that's just my opinion. So
Molly, I have a question. This is Jason.
Yes. Yep.
So what's the big deal if we have to do a different town meeting day? Is it they're not open any other days of the year? I don't follow. I get the timeline. So why can't we just do a meeting correctly next week or the week after, and then we have a town meeting whenever we choose? I'd rather do it right than haphazardly
you have to do the whole,
rush into it.
you have to do the whole
Priscilla,
budget. You
Priscilla,
have to
stop.
warn a meeting.
Priscilla, stop. Let me answer the question.
Okay, go ahead, Molly.
Jason, there is a time frame that the town of West, or all towns, they have a deadline of when these articles have to be put into the town. So we are asking for Article 5 to be put onto their ballot, and their deadline for us to have that article into them is today. And that's why we've declared these two in the middle of the day meetings, trying to get this article done, or all of the articles, but the most important one for the, to get in is Article 5, and all this
Got
gets put into the town report. So, we're
I
kind
got
of
it.
caught.
So it's not just so that they have other things that they're voting on at the town meeting, which makes sense. And if we miss it, we basically miss the bus and we're out of luck.
Right. And it's not even for the
Got it.
meeting so much as the voting, because like Westminster's meeting isn't until sometime in April, but we vote on March 1st on these articles.
You have
Right.
a quorum
Thank
now,
you.
Molly. Are you aware of that?
Oh,
Deb
good.
is here.
I am not. Thank you very much. All right, let's
Thank you,
continue.
David. That's what I was trying to get Molly's attention for. So, thank you.
Sorry, Andy.
Deb Wright joined.
It seems to me we can move, Molly, sorry to interrupt, I'm jumping back in. All we have to do is decide whether or not we want to account for an error in the calculation and put out a number accordingly, or essentially have a backdoor cut to the expenses that we had already agreed on. And I'm wondering if, since you've talked this all out in detail yesterday, I gather, it seems to me we just need to have a vote on it one way or the other.
That's
And I'm
correct.
wondering, and so why don't I'd like to call the question and propose that we adjust the budget figures to account for the discrepancy that was found. And I will need the actual number for that.
So Jack,
Point of order, Molly, technically, we would have to rescind the original because we've already voted it.
Okay, then as the person who voted for it, I'll move to rescind it.
So we have to approve this whole warning list, and hopefully you all have it on your email.
Yep.
And right now we're talking about Article 5.
Yep.
And on last Friday, February 14th, the Bellas Falls Union High School voted on a budget of $7,023,772.83. Jack Breyer has put a motion on the table to rescind that motion and make a new motion for the budget. So we'll do a roll call. David?
I continue to abstain, Molly.
Okay. Jason? Priscilla?
No,
Deb?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Jason, can you hear me?
Sorry. Abstain, please.
There's 2 yes, 2 abstain, and 1 no.
It's not the best vote we've ever had, Molly.
I'm gonna vote yes.
Thank you.
So we have just rescinded that motion from that we had on Friday. That's gone away. So now I would like to hear from Broadley, because it doesn't mean we can't go back to that original number we started with. And I don't really I think there's still a lot of confusion in the room. So even though we're probably all antsy because it's in the middle of the day and probably not an opportune time for a meeting, I would like to hear from John whether he really thinks that the budget is okay at $7,023,772.83, or do we go back to what Glenn is telling us it really ought to be? And I think, I'm leaning towards what Glenn tells us because he has studied these numbers and probably understands them better than anyone here.
Yep.
And he is telling us that it ought to be $7,310,995. Mr. Broadley, please
Well-
tell me what you think.
After Glenn explained it a few times the other day, it helped me understand the pass-through for the tech center a little better. In fact, pretty well. We have to show the money in the budget as an expense to properly account and get the adequate tax money to then raise money to pay for it.
Yeah.
The grant or the money from the state, it's a pass-through. So we're getting it in and it goes straight out to the tech center. So we're actually getting, although we only see it for a short time, we don't even see it hardly, we're getting the revenue to pay that number, but we have to show it in the budget. And I believe we always had to show it in the budget. Now, Glenn putting that in and bringing it to 7.3 net shows it only being down overall, I believe, about $250,000 between high school and the assessments. However, it put us in a very good place for reaching the equalized pupil count and still a reduction to the taxpayer. So Glenn, is that an adequate interpretation of what you said the other day?
Yes, there is a significant reduction in the tax rate, even by raising this number up. Your 3 prior year comparison shows a reduction in the tax rate from $1.75 last year or this year to $1.46 next year.
Right.
Okay, so Mr. Broadley, what is your recommendation for the surplus?
Well, first of all, my recommendation for the budget is having to show the pass-through money and having it be the 7.3. I haven't got it.
7,310,995.
Yes. And the surplus, which again was another avenue, I believe, and Andy will need to help me out here. I think, has that been reduced to is it 522 now? Is that what I was reading this morning?
Yeah, so the total fund balance, and now, see, I just closed my screen. So the total fund balance was at, my screen's not cooperating, I apologize. The total fund balance was $892,374.55. However, much of that is accounted for or assigned because you have $313,586 in capital improvements, and you have $17,613 in timber sales, $35,532 for academic enrichment. So those are all things you've already voted on, which leaves $62,259, and then the remaining additional fund balance from 21. So that brought it to $5,022.
Have that number again, please.
Sorry. $522,000. So I apologize.
We have that digit problem the other day, Andy.
Yeah, I know. Jack, I'm actually going to go home after this meeting and try.
Oh, I think you should, man.
It's $522,000 you have in fund balance that you need to assign.
Well, we were, Molly, to go to further answer in brief conversation with Andy and just an email or two this morning. Would it be feasible to do 100,000 rollover for the next 3 years and put the other 222,000 into the capital reserve fund that already exists, which would give us a $500,000 capital reserve, and it would give us a regular number going back every year and allow us to get to maintain a more level budget each year, keeping it below the threshold and keeping the tax rate there or moving down a little as opposed to going like this. That's just my individual interpretation of it. So
May I suggest, John,
sure,
Molly,
absolutely.
Molly, just for clarification, it seems to me the issue of the of surplus is a separate item on this thing, and I'd like us to just sort of. I think the question asked was, would you are you accepting our consultant finance gentleman's Glenn's number as the bottom line number? Because I want to be able to
Yes.
make a motion to that effect if that is the answer.
Yes.
Okay.
So my understanding, Jack, is that we are accepting that number, but
Yep.
we still have that. Aren't we going to take that $100,000 off that number and because we're going to put it back into?
Glenn, would that
Maybe I'm
100,000
misunderstanding this, but I
support,
thought
would that 100,000, Glenn, support an even further help to the tax rate?
It would show as a revenue on your worksheet, and it would reduce the ed spending per equalized pupil and the tax rate. It does not, unfortunately, attack the issue that's over here, which is your expenditures are still $7,300,000.
I understand.
Can I ask a question, Molly?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not understanding if it's coming from the state. I thought it was coming as a grant pass through. And you keep telling me that, no, they get it somewhere else. But we also vote on the River Valley Tech stuff and what we have to assess in a separate article under the River Valley Tech on all of our voting on by Australian ballot there. So I'm just not understanding why this is put in this way.
I think it's because you have to still approve the tech center's budget. And I'll let David go through this, but having sat on the board, that was my understanding. David, what's yours?
I'll try and state it simply. I say this all the time. River Valley Tech Center is an independent municipality with its own board of control and its own taxing authority.
Right.
What is correct, and I got a lot of help from Glenn on this yesterday, is there is pass-through money which flows through our budget to RVTC. And I think that in at least a part, that's the money that Glenn is talking about here. It comes in and it goes out in exactly the same amount. If we don't log it as revenue, to the best of my understanding, then we make up the difference locally because we have not logged the revenue. I hope that's a simple enough explanation. And I'm going to ask Glenn to correct me, please.
What you've said is true. You also probably pay a tuition payment to River Valley that is also shown in your budget. That the worksheet that we looked at this morning shows a tuition of about $8,000 for each of your FTE over the 6-semester average. But I believe both of those payments are in your budget.
We have in the past estimated that number a little optimistically so that it doesn't become an unexpected cash shortfall. When, because I pushed that number up more than once over the years. But But the thing is that the tech center doesn't generate a report with a tax sheet in it that everybody gets. It's not that kind of thing. So, you know, because as you say, we're basically the pass through, and it shows up on our local tax sheet. They don't have their own tax sheet. At least I've never seen one. So, you know, if that's helpful, and that's why it has to show where it does. At least that's
Yes,
been mine.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct me if I got that wrong.
They don't raise any taxes of their own.
Yeah.
You vote the budget, or the region votes the budget, but their receipt of the revenues comes directly from tuition payments and the on behalf, and then there's a second grant, a tuition reimbursement grant that they get. They all come. One of the things, a minor correction, is you actually never see this money. The on behalf payment goes directly from the ed fund to the tech centers.
Yeah. It's
You
just
have to show it as a pass through.
Yeah.
But you don't ever pass it through. It simply goes on beyond you. I do have a,
So can I just cut in for a second, Glenn?
yes.
I totally appreciate everything you're doing for us. I do have a member that is going to have to leave, so I'm gonna ask Jack to please put a motion on the floor.
Okay, I move that instead of the number we have previously used, that we approve a budget of 7 million. Give me the numbers one more time, Andy.
310,995.
That's exactly what I said. Thank you, Molly.
So you just made a motion to write Article 5 as shall the voters of the Union High School District Number 27 approve the school board to expend $7,310,995.
I did, and I've
Wait.
got, and I'm voting yes. I gotta grab this one too. I'm sorry. This is the middle of my workday.
Jack is voting yes. Does anyone have any more questions on Article 5 on how it's going to be written? The only thing we don't have, we do not have the equalized student price in there. Can we have that, Glenn?
Well, I think it would, that's where it would change based on if you're gonna use $100,000 of carryover.
Right.
So I'll just give you the two numbers. If you do not use $100,000 in carryover, you are talking $18,929.69. If you use $100,000, you're talking $18,669.24.
Does the $100,000 that is a surplus going back to the taxpayers go on Article 5?
It would be a separate article, but it will affect that number depending on the decision you make.
Okay, that's getting.
They actually don't have to have a separate number if it's included in their budget. The approval of the budget approves the use of prior year fund balance. Article 5 is the vote on what you're going to expend. If they make a motion that they want to include $100,000 of prior year fund balance as a revenue, we'll put that in the 3 prior year comparison. And it will mean in the second part of Article 5 that your ed spending per equalized pupil is lower. But they don't have to have a separate article to ask the taxpayers to use it, because the approval of the budget as it's published is approval of using the fund balance.
Got it. Okay.
They would need an article if they wanted to do something else with other fund balance to reserve it.
All right, so I feel like I'm kind of in a muddy spot right here, because it kind of feels like we need to go back and make a vote on the budget that we just rescinded before we do this article.
You can vote on the budget because that number's half of the article that you're talking about. Then your next question is, do you wish to use fund balance? Because that will change the ed spending per equalized pupil, which is the second sentence of that article. But you need
So,
two actions here.
so right now, there's a motion on the floor that the voters of the Union High School District Number 27 approve the school board to expend $7,310,995, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that the proposed budget, if approved, okay, we're not doing that. So at the end of the fiscal year, so let's see if we can get a vote on that. David Clark,
I am abstaining from the motion, Molly.
Jason,
No,
Priscilla,
Molly, I'm not sure what I'm voting on.
Can you restate
Jack?
the motion? Can you
Yes.
just restate the motion?
so the motion right now is, that we approve Article 5 is written as, shall the voters of the Union High School District Number 27 approve the school board to expend $7,310,995, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year.
Okay, that's the number that Glenn gave us a minute ago. So I'm voting correct?
Correct.
So I'm voting yes for that.
Okay, Deb,
I'm still not clear either. I feel like I'm behind Priscilla, thanks. So I have to wait. I don't know, maybe we'll get to the end of the vote. I'll know better.
okay, so it's you and Priscilla.
Didn't David abstain?
He did,
Yes.
but he's been doing that out of principle here, so.
Okay, please read me the motion one more time.
Shall the voters of the Union High School District Number 27 approve the school board to expend $7,310,995, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year.
My answer is
No.
no.
We really think it's necessary in what quarter?
Priscilla,
Where are we at? I'm sorry, I had to walk away for a minute.
we were trying to pass the budget with Glenn's number and put in that and put in that line of the dollar amount.
shall the
What is-
voters of the Union High School District Number 27 approve the school board to expend $7,310,995,000. It is estimated that the proposal budget, I'm sorry, I got offline here, I read it so many times, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year.
Did Deb vote?
Yes, she did.
How did she vote?
No.
I'm going to abstain.
Might be up to our chair to vote for this, or one way or the
It
other.
doesn't
Molly.
matter. Well, I trust Glenn, but it still doesn't pass the budget because we've got 2 abstains, it's a tie. We got 2 noes and 2 yeses.
Does somebody have another figure they'd like? I mean, because I thought this was the number we just agreed on 2 minutes ago. Because
David, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
I can hear him. Priscilla, please make a motion that you would like to see on Article 5.
David, you're muted.
Molly, I'm sorry. I just don't know. I was comfortable when I went home Friday night that we'd done this, and now I'm just up in the air.
Molly, I have offered to change my vote to a yes. I do it against my better principles, but I think that we need to go to the voters with a budget, and we don't have much time left to accomplish that goal. So I'm going to vote. I'm going to change my abstention to a yes.
Thank you. So the motion has passed.
Molly, I am just really upset. I will change mine also if I have to, because I think we need more discussion on this. I think we need to figure out really, if it's passed through, why we're having to add it, and why we're having, why we're not okay with Friday's number. I really need more information.
Okay, well,
Can
the
I be
motion
helpful
passed
in this as
without,
a guy
and
who
you
used
don't
to
have
write
to
these?
No, the
change your vote.
passing does not, because if he's changing, I'm doing no, so it doesn't pass.
Can I be at all helpful? We've done this same thing for years, and that's what I don't understand. This is basically money that comes in, and because it doesn't fit on anybody else's tax sheet, it fits on the tax sheets of the towns that are sending students to the RVTC. When Bobby Smith goes to school here, he goes to school in the morning. We're paying for his morning. He's going to RVTC in the afternoon. We're paying RVTC just like we're paying instead of that teacher for his afternoon. That is all that's happened here. That money, that afternoon money, has to be accounted for. And that's what Glenn's saying we weren't accounting for, and we need to account for that. That is all.
Okay, then I will still abstain. I will still abstain because I voted no on the first one. And then you can have it pass, Molly. You've taken care of it. Thank you. Thanks, Jack.
Glad to help.
Point of
Okay,
order.
so, yes,
Once a motion is taken, the vote is taken and completed, you can't just jump in there like putting your foot back in the water and changing your vote back and forth, Mr. Clark. Vote what should have stayed as what he listed it as abstention. You can't just jump back in and open it back up to change it to make it fit your needs. Not to mention, this is based upon a lot of things such as our lack of comfort and trust in the numbers we're looking at. It's not just about, for me, it's not just about the technical school. It's not. It's about the fact we're not using any reserve money to reduce the taxes for this. Wait a second, please. I'm addressing the chair, which is the point of order. I'm addressing the chair. And that we're not using any money from reserve to reduce the tax. Wait, Jack, stop shaking your head. This is why I don't have my picture on here, because I'm agitated. And number two, the vote has been taken. The vote is taken and didn't pass. You don't just jump back in. You have to have a new motion from someone who voted in the affirmative to open it back up.
So David.
Okay. Molly, point of order.
David has that
Point
right.
of order,
Small.
Molly, point of order.
yes.
Anyone
Priscilla.
who voted in for the way the motion went, which is no, can move to reconsider it.
That's right.
there
Also,
were
an
two
abstention
noes.
can vote. An abstention can to do the same thing.
I
You said
don't
this-
know whether that's true or not.
Yeah.
I do know that the no ones can, the ones that voted.
Well,
the
then
way
you can do it, because didn't you vote no initially?
I did an abstention on this one. It would be Jason and Deb. Or we can do a new motion. So Molly,
Jason or
It seems
Deb?
to me
Molly,
we're
can you ask
Everybody
Jason?
stop.
Molly,
Jason or Deb, would you like to go back to this motion that was just voted down, or do we need to make a new motion?
We need to go back and per Robert's rules, you need to make a new motion. You can't just jump in and alter the motion.
No, we understand that, Deb, and
So-
I respect
So
that.
make
So
make
now I'm
another
looking for-
motion. I mean, what I'm saying is, I'm not comfortable with the number, and I don't think that's going to change for me. I'm simply saying you can't, whether it passes or not passes, whatever the answer is, you can't just reopen it and change the numbers because you feel like it. So you need to make it, so another motion needs to be made again by one of the people who is no, and I still don't feel comfortable. So I guess you better get Priscilla to do it.
You could vote for a
No,
different
I didn't vote
motion.
no, I abstained. It's Jason or Deb.
So you have no approved motion. Go ahead and make a
That's
new
right.
Then we can, but you can
I
have.
can make a new
vote.
motion if you'd like.
Have to make a
If,
new
would you
motion.
like me to do that, Molly? We had two choices here, Molly. We could either reconsider it by either Jason or Debbie asking for it to be reconsidered. Or one of us can make a new motion with just a slight change. I mean, we could change it by, if you really wanted to go with that, you can change it. So if somebody wants to make a new motion, that would happen.
Let's
Thanks,
have a
Molly.
new motion. Who's ready to do a new motion?
I'd like, I'm wondering if the chair might do a roundtable to see if we have majority to have the same figure, was $5, so we can just move this process along.
David, if we were to do that, what would be your thoughts?
My thoughts would be to go back to the figure that we settled on Friday night. I would support that.
And what was that number?
7,003,772.83.
And so we're basically gonna be running a 300,000 deficit knowingly on day one. Is that kind of how this works? If we do that?
Correct. That's correct.
Dear God Almighty.
I would go for that.
I think we're setting ourselves up a little bit here, but you know, we're here, so it's gonna take all of us to either make it or break it. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Molly, I have a quick question. Molly, are
Go
you
for
there?
it. Yep.
So if we reduce it by $300,000, we potentially aren't running a deficit. We'd have to find $300,000 with a big eraser and cut it off the budget, correct?
You pass it off to the next year and increase everybody's taxes by that amount next year. That's what you'd end up doing.
Or we can find $300,000 and reduce our taxes, correct?
You could. But is that
I
the
just
program you
don't,
want?
I think Mr. Haas is doing a great job. I think Mr. Barley's doing a good job. I just, with all the turnover and the turmoil, I don't trust the number. That's my opinion. And I'm ready to vote.
You don't trust which one?
I don't
On
trust any of the
Friday or the
numbers,
one
to
that
be
Glenn
honest.
tells us it should be?
I prefer the lower number.
But is that real, Jason? I mean, you get 5 people you want to let go?
Do I have 5 people I want to let go? Is that? I
Yeah,
didn't
because
hear
that's
you,
what
I'm
you're
sorry.
talking about.
Well, that would be up to Mr. Broadley.
Well, no, it's up to you. Do you think there's 5 people that we could cut tomorrow? Because that's what you're voting to do.
I can tell you last year when I joined the high school board, our teacher to student ratio was higher than other schools with the same amount of students. So maybe that is an answer. I'm not sure. And those are facts, right? I mean, our teacher
No, they're
student
not
ratio
really.
is,
That's the thing.
then that's my point, Jack. If
I'm just
all
saying,
of the
you look
numbers are
at
baloney, all of the numbers are baloney. I don't know what to trust.
well, you can look at Springfield's numbers, which are comparable, and you look at their staffing, which is comparable. So you do have numbers you can look at that are comparable. So the question is,
Yeah, and we
are you
looked
just
at
gonna-
Green Mountain
are you
last
just
year, and they had
gonna-
the same
are
amount of
you gonna-
students, and they were 9-1, we were 12-1. So that's a fact.
if you're gonna cut people, if we're 12-1 and they're 9-1, then that says that we're run leaner than they do. So the question comes back, are you basically saying that we like to cut 5 teachers, but we don't particularly care who? And that's our oversight of the high, that's what our oversight of the high school amounts to.
I think you're trying to put words in my mouth.
No,
I'm not
but
comfortable
I'm
with
just
the
telling you
number.
that's what you're
I'm
doing.
not comfortable. I'm not
That's
comfortable
what
with the
you're
number
doing.
based on the history of the business office. End of story.
The history of the business office.
Based
got
on the
nothing to do
history
with
of
this.
the assistant superintendent and the superintendent who no longer work here.
But
Based on
but
that,
you're-
I don't
but you're
trust
taking-
that.
But you're fixing that.
Molly,
Could actually
Molly,
order.
point of
don't
order,
agree?
point of order. I'd like to make a motion that we do this amount at $7,310,950.
Not gonna pass.
So you have just made a motion that the voters of the Union High School District Number 27 approve the school board to expend $7,310,950.
Right. That is close to the figure that's there. It just rounded it.
All right, I think we've discussed this a lot, but I hate to just call a vote and have somebody think they didn't get to speak. So can we vote?
Molly, just point of inquiry, the rounding off, we're rounding off which set of numbers? The ones from Friday, the ones today?
So Jack, the figure is going to be $7,310,950.
Okay.
I do have my hand
How
up.
do you vote? I'm
Uh,
sorry,
Deb has her hand up.
go ahead, Deb.
I was trying to speak to the lower number, which still isn't on the table. That we have had additional money left over every year for I don't know how many years. And I don't see any reason why. And we also budget for positions that are not filled, period. That are not filled and may not be filled within the year. And if it makes it, and if lower number makes it more difficult for the negotiating committee to make their stand, well, I'm sorry about that. But the reality is we don't use the money. We have positions we don't fill every year. Other things have altered. We always have an excess of funds, which we continue to throw back in. And we do not even give the taxpayers the opportunity to have a reduced budget by raising taxes only above the amount we need, not just the amount we say we need. I don't trust the numbers. I'm not going to vote in the affirmative on this. And I would even ask that this be a majority vote in order to pass.
Okay, that's fine, but there's a motion on the table right now. And we need to vote on that motion. If it gets voted down and we start over, then that's what we do. But right now, there's a
understand,
motion
Molly.
on the
I
table.
move the question, Madam Chair.
David,
Can I speak,
how would you like
can
to
I
vote?
speak to the motion, Molly, before we do it?
This
Can
is
I
the
speak
last
to it?
time because you've had a lot,
Okay.
so go ahead.
Okay, but I made the motion, so I'd like to speak to it. The reason I put this on there is that there's a lot of back and forth discussion here. And if Glenn is really firm on saying that it's passed through, it does come in as revenue and then it will go back out. So it's reflected as revenue in our revenue statements. It basically is not going to change that numbers that we had on Friday, except to do that pass through. And I think at this point, because of all the not being able to agree and that kind of thing, we need an amount on there to be able to put to the voters. And then it is up to the voters to decide whether they want to pass it or don't pass it. Yes, if they don't pass it, we're in a worse situation. And the lower number does make it easier for them to pass. But if we're just passing it through as revenue, it's not changing the budget from what we are under, what has been presented to them already. So I'm okay with doing this, not as comfortable as I'd like to be, but I am okay with doing it. Thank you, Molly, for letting me speak.
Welcome. Are we ready for the question? David? David Clark, are you still there with us?
I am here, Molly, and I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
No,
Priscilla?
Yes,
Deb? Deb, are you still with us?
I'm still with you and I'm not comfortable with us not doing our job. So it's no.
Jack?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the motion passes 4 yes and 2 no. We have one more that we have to make sure gets approved, and that is the education spending per pupil, per equalized pupil. And I believe that what I understand is the way we do that is we
lost somebody.
Molly.
Ollie.
We lost Molly.
oh, she'll come back.
Yeah, I think she's back in.
Let's go on. Let's go on with the discussion as
There
Vice
she is.
Chair.
There she is.
Oh, okay. There, she's coming back.
Sorry, guys, I got bumped out. So we need to get a motion. For estimated the proposed budget, we did. Now we have to have educating spending of whatever the figure is going to be per equalized pupil.
Yep.
Now, we have to have a motion for that, but we have talked about putting $100,000 back into for the taxpayers out of the surplus. So that's going to bring that number down if we agree on that. You're looking
Isn't that the
befumbled,
default?
Jack. Did I say that wrong?
No, I think that if there's a surplus by default, it goes back to taxpayers unless you allocate it. So if.
So we
if-
were, so the suggestion made at the beginning of the meeting was that there is a surplus of $522,000.
Yep,
They want to give $100,000 for the next 3 years back to the taxpayers and $222,000 to go into the capital reserve fund.
okay. I guess the question I'd ask my colleagues is, are we fixing the driveway in the next 3 years? Because if you give the money back, which is fine, you're gonna have to borrow that same amount of money to go fix the driveway, and you're gonna be paying what, maybe 6% a year with the interest rates jumping. Do you want to put that money aside and save taxpayers that 6% bond, or do you want to do it? I mean, that's kind of the deal here, and I don't have a. It's up to y'all, you know, but I think that's
Broadley.
the real question.
Mr. Broadley can speak to that. We had a discussion about that. So please get us up to speed on that, John, please.
Well, again, it's not just through me, but Andy as well. But our hope is that we are going to take care of as many of the projects needed in the next few years through our SRARP. And then having that reserve will also support projects that if we don't get everything in, if we
But
don't
you
get everything done through that. So
can't use ESSER money to fix the driveway though, John. So the question becomes, I mean, I understand the business about the heat ventilation stuff, but
Mhm.
talk, this was like, and I have no view on this because I don't know driveways. The question is, if you're going to go if you really need to go fix it, and I don't know, but if you really need to go fix it the next 3 years, we got two choices. You can either take it out of a surplus and not pay any interest on it, or you cannot have a surplus and go for a bond. Those seem to be your two choices to me. And the question I'm asking, I guess you is, do we need to fix it next 3 years? And to my colleagues, do you want to pay a bank 6% for something that you don't have to, or do you want to, put the money aside?
No, I agree with you, Jack. If we can't get it out of ESSO, which I was led to believe that it's becoming more hopeful that we can. But again, Andy, can you speak a little to that? I don't want to mislead anyone here.
We can always put it in. When I spoke with the state, a few months back, when I was trying to get an understanding of how to use the funds and whatnot, and I used the parking lot as an example. I got what pretty close to a no, that'll never happen. And they even used an example of another school district who tried to do something similar, and it wasn't allowed to go through.
That would have been my guess.
But I don't want to say I don't know. I've seen, I'm glad I've seen the state do crazy things, but so.
I mean, this is like Chris Hodgson's bailiwick. He was hot to fix that driveway every year for the last 10 years. And I don't know enough about driveways to say if he was right, or it just never looked like he was. So the question is, if we don't need to be doing it now, that's fine. But if we're really going to need to do it the next 3 years or so, I'm figuring interest rates could be in the 6% to 9% range in another 3 years. And I just hate paying Toronto Dominion 6% a year to run a bond when I could have the money in hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
So the reason why I always mention the driveway is because my understanding is there's going to be some state rules that are going to tell us that we got some real drainage problems, and the runoff water is going to have some real work done on it. And we're eventually, if everything goes the way they say it's going to go, we're going to get forced into doing it. And so I keep mentioning it every year because I'd rather get caught with my belt on tight than my pants down. And I think it is something that maybe we really don't want to spend that kind of money. And I'm not looking to make us look like, I think presentation is a lot, but it's not that I'm worried about a pothole. It's that I know that we have a real drainage problem, and it's not getting run off where it needs to go run off and be controlled. And we're gonna eventually someday, even though we're a municipality and everything else, we may get our hands spanked pretty hard. So I do
Molly,
think
I'm
it's an
seeking to be
important thing.
recognized.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Molly. I'll get that handout in a moment. I happen to believe that this is not a dialogue between Jack Breyer and the school board, but rather a school board meeting. And I'm not aware that Mr. Breyer sought to be recognized when he began putting these points up for discussion. Now, I'm going to suggest that if Mr. Breyer has very strong feelings around this, that instead of debating the entire school board, that he simply put a motion on the floor and it's a school board debate it.
I just wanted to find out what the deal was. Sorry, guys, that was inappropriate, and you're right.
Molly, Deb has her hand up also.
Yes, Deb.
Why are we wasting our time talking about a possible ESSER-funded project and getting through this? It's been over an hour. We've had this an hour. Well, I was late, of course, and I still haven't seen my guy yet. But in any case, I still have a lot of work to do and I'm gonna have to split soon and we still haven't gotten finished.
So would you be willing to make a motion to put, so here's what I tried to start and it got out of control, is we have a surplus 522,000. The suggestion has been made by the superintendent and the principal to put $100,000 for the next 3 years, put it back to the taxpayers and put $222,000 into the capital reserve fund. And we need a motion to do that so that we can do that. After we do that, we can also then get our equalized pupil number in there so that we can get these articles done and get them to the towns.
So moved. How about that?
Perfect. So there is a motion on the floor right now. We have a surplus of $522,000. We're going to put $100,000 for the next 3 years back into the taxpayers, and we're going to put $222,000 into the capital reserve fund. Has everyone heard enough? Can we vote on that? David?
Yes.
Thank you. Jason?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes,
Deb? Are you
Drop
still
my
with me,
mouse.
Deb?
Yeah, I dropped my mouse.
Okay. Jack, are you with us? Jack, are you with us?
It appears that Mr. Breyer is signaling assent through a thumbs up. He's taking a cell call at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
And Molly, if we could just, we didn't catch Deb's vote.
She said yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was I, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion passes.
And
Okay,
Molly,
now I would,
I'm sorry, I saw Glenn had his hand up, so I just wanted to.
all right, so what I'm looking for now is the education spending per equalized pupil.
So I have it at $17,921.03.
Okay, so to not to confuse the same one it already is, but you had just given me 18,669 if we took the $100 a year.
So
I just want to make sure it's right.
right, no, so I'm doing it on the worksheet as we're speaking. So as you constantly keep adjusting those numbers, that's why it adjusted. So
Okay, perfect.
that is with the 7,310,950,
Yes,
and then with the offsetting revenue, it
yes,
gets you to a equalized pupil spending of 17,921.03.
that's perfect. That's a good number. Glenn, did you have a comment before we go to vote?
My only question was whether you wanted to separate the two pieces of fund balance for your articles, or whether you voted as a single article. I think it's immaterial, really, but the question is, one, will they reserve some money in the capital projects fund? And the other is, will they use money to reduce the tax rate over the several years? It's only one of those questions about some people might vote against it because it contains something that they don't like.
they should be separate articles, Molly, all of them.
I think that's what Glenn just tried to tell me. So let's,
It was really up to the board.
Yeah, that's why I
Okay.
weighed in.
article,
Molly, would we have to rescind the motion that Mr. Breyer made? Or has that motion actually been voted? Because I believe we've either passed it or we're still under consideration.
No, we just need to say that they should be separated. We can just say yes, all of us, and then it's taken care of.
So I have the warnings that we did in 2018, and we had all that in one Article 5. We had the budget number and we had the equalized pupil all in one.
Yeah,
That
we're
is-
talking about the other articles, Molly, the 100,000s and the capital 220. That's what we're talking about being separate.
Okay. So Mr. Breyer has made a motion to, no, Deb made the motion to take care of this surplus fund, and we need to make it into an article.
Right.
Okay. So can we all agree that that could be, what do you want to put it, Articles 7?
You should do it as at least 3 articles. The 100,000 this year, you probably can just put in, but the other for the next 2 years and the capital should be each separate articles.
Okay, can you make that motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that they be separate articles. As
And
previously
you want,
voted.
and you want 3 different articles for each $100,000 going back to the taxpayers.
It should be, because that way it makes a point to them that this is
Yeah.
what they are getting, and it just is a reinforcing thing to, to see.
Point of information.
Yes, sir.
We cannot commit a future boards in future years to return a dime to taxpayers. That's not how it works. We can't tie the hands of any future board. You can send money for this year, but you can't do anything for future years. I think language like that is always inappropriate. We've struck it down in the past and it's come up in the past. If you want to give people money back this year, give them money back this year, but you can't give them back money 3 years in a row.
Ollie,
Yes.
that's totally false. Rockingham Board does that all the time. We've done it in all the years past, as far back as I could find records. And we are earmarking what money was surplus from last year. That is ours to take care of. It has nothing to do with their future monies. It's giving the taxpayers the right to place their money that was surplus last year where they wanted.
But
And
you
that's
can't,
what
you
we're voting.
cannot obligate a future board to honor that agreement. You can't.
We're
You just
not
can't.
obligating the future board, Molly. We're obligating the money that is already ours to apportion. It has nothing to do with the future money that their board will have. It has to do with the money that we currently have. And we have every right to do what we want with that money that we already have, that we're working with. And if the taxpayers don't do that, then that money has to be put into this year's. You have no choice. You cannot, in the capital reserve, you can't put it in capital
Yeah.
reserve either, because that's for a future. That's for the future boards to decide where they will go.
Boy, you really want to check with a lawyer on that someday.
I know Glenn has his hand up, but Deb just left, so we lost our quorum.
Yep. So we have Article 5 ready, and we have nothing else ready, and we've lost our quorum.
Well, we can call Deb and ask her how she votes.
And I know Glenn had a comment on that whole thing, so.
Glenn, what you got?
Well, I did want to suggest that Jack is correct in that the board has no authority to do that, but the voters could, if you constructed the article in such a way that they could vote you're already using $100,000, or I believe that's the intent of the board. And this year, you don't need their permission to do that. If you wanted to ask them to reserve $200,000 of prior year fund balance to be used, the intent to use over the next 2 years to reduce taxes, that might be appropriate.
That's what we did.
The voters, once the board, on June 30th, the fund balance becomes the property of the district. And the district voters can take action on that. That's just a nuance. The board cannot. The board can ask them to do things with it, to reserve it. But I think if you ask them to reserve $200,000 of the prior year fund balance to be used for tax reduction in the 2 future years or in future budget years, that would be appropriate.
So if we had 2 articles, one to take $100,000 and put it to reduce taxes, and then another article for $200,000 to ask them to reduce taxes for the next 2 years after that.
Right, but you want one article, or I believe your intent is to have an article to put some money in capital projects.
Yep.
And you only need to deal with the $200,000 if you decide you wish to use $100,000 this year. If you put $100,000 of fund balance into this budget, if your motion is to do that, that's appropriate. If they approve the budget with the $100,000 in there, they have approved the use of that fund balance. Then your only article necessary is to say, we wish to reserve $200,000 of prior year fund balance to be used in future years for the reduction of taxes. And next year they can decide, the board can decide how much of that they're asking the voters to use. It will sit there until the voters approve its use, essentially.
Okay, so an article to put $222,000 in their capital reserve.
And authorize the board to use those funds.
Do you already have a capital projects fund? Yeah.
We do.
So that was in when the voters voted to do that, they gave you the authority to put money in the fund and to spend it as the fund was established, for the use the fund was established. So if you said it was going to be for capital projects, then the board gets to make that decision. You can ask them if you wish, but you don't need to.
Molly, we have always put in there, anytime we put capital reserve in there, and authorize the board to use those funds, because it's new funds going in. So we've always done that. So you're safer doing that.
Okay.
Molly, I have a question.
Yes.
What is currently in our capital reserve fund prior to this year's question?
Yep, they just told us that. Capital improvements, I believe I got this right, Andy, 313,000.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yes, that is correct.
Okay,
And
So
so
we've
then we're
been
gonna
putting
add
one-
another. We're gonna add another 300,000, and then 100 goes back to the taxpayers.
No,
trying to
Jason,
do.
we'd be adding $222,000 to the capital improvement reserve. And then what I'm following is that an additional $200,000 would be set aside for future years to reduce taxes. And then that leaves $100,000 that would be used for this year to offset the bottom line.
What, one more time, what would the grand total be for our capital reserve after this year?
Oh, I have to do that math. Hang on. So,
535.
I didn't hear Priscilla, I'm sorry.
535,000.
535,000. And we know the money's actually there?
yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Is anybody ready? Well, so we can make some motions, but without a quorum, we're gonna have to.
Call
You said you
Deb.
could call Deb?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my phone so I can call her. What have we already approved? We've already approved the amount. Did we already approve the 100,000 and the 500, the 222? Did we already approve the 522? Do we vote on that at all?
We have not.
Okay.
We
Just
have,
got to discussing that we needed separate articles. That's
we have approved the budget number. And we're
Okay.
trying to approve the equalized spending. But to do that, we have to take care of this $100,000 going back to reduce taxes to get the right numbers. I'm following myself right there. Is that correct, Andrew?
I think what you are discussing is essentially what to do with the fund balance, which is $522,000. But what the articles that I've kind of been writing as we've been going is the first one would be to see if the Union High School District number 27 will apply the sum of $200,000 from fiscal year 21 fund balance to create a reserve fund to offset expenditures in future years in order to reduce taxes. And a second article, which is to see if the Union High School District number 27 will apply the sum of $222,000 from fiscal year 21 fund balance to add to the reserve fund to be used for capital improvements at the Union High School and authorize the board to expend said funds.
So the only other thing, I have that sheet up that you are writing on, and the only other thing we need to do though is we have to move, well, what they're telling me is this has got to be separated. In the other articles in years past, we've kept the equalized pupil.
So that's already, so essentially by making those two, if you approve the, if I'm, and Glenn here, I'm checking with you, but if you approve those two articles, you then are keeping $100,000 back, which will automatically offset FY23, which will give you that $17,193.80 of equalized pupil spending.
And so, but my question was, in all the other ones that I've looked up, that has all been in one article. The equalized student
Molly?
price and, no, wait a second, I'm trying to ask a question.
I want you to get Deb's vote. Can I get you to?
Molly, I understand what you're saying is that it was all in one article. I think Glenn's recommendation and what we also did in Rockingham was we
Hold on, just
separated
2
those out
seconds.
so that if someone didn't like the whole
Okay.
package, they could vote down separate articles as opposed to voting down the entire package.
Okay, so we need to change that to article something.
Yeah, and that's what I've been.
So Priscilla, you're trying to get Deb's vote, but you don't have a motion on the
I
floor
got
yet.
Deb told me yes, but then you did. Is that okay? Or she told me yes. Do you want me to call her back again because she had to
We
go?
don't have an article on the floor yet. We don't have a motion on the floor yet. So what did she vote on?
I told her the motion was to use the 522,000 like we were discussing for $100. Here, she's calm back. 100, and my motion would be to use the 522,000, 100,000 this year, and put 2 articles for 100,000 for the next 2 years and 222,000 for capital reserve.
Okay,
Okay.
so you have just made a motion for Article 7 and 8. There
And
Motion on
probably
the floor
9.
for
because you
Article
got
7. The Union High
8
School
and
District number
9.
20.
Well, all you need is the 100,000 for this year, 100,000 for each of the next 2 years, and the 222,000 for capital reserves, and do your articles based on that. Those 3 articles, the 100,000 for each of the next 2 years and the 222,000. Okay, do you want to hear her yell at you?
Deb, what is your vote?
Deb,
Yes,
speak up.
please. Let's hear Deb's voice.
Can you hear her? Deb?
I
how do you
heard her
vote?
say aye.
Here and I, yes.
Okay, she heard you.
David, what's your pleasure?
Okay. Thanks, Deb. Bye.
Excuse me, have we adopted a warning?
So
Yeah,
what
that's
we
what
have,
our articles are for.
yes, what Priscilla has just done is we are trying to have Article 7 and Article 8, which will say to see if the Union
And
High
9.
School Article number 7, to see if the Union High School District number 27 will apply the sum of $200,000 for the fiscal year 2021 fund balance to create a reserve fund to offset expenditures in future years in order to reduce taxes.
Actually, what Deb
And-
voted on was the motion I did, Molly, which was to do 100,000 in that article for next year and 100,000 for the following year.
All you have added articles to your warning, but I'm unaware that we have actually approved the warning. That's what I'm trying to get across here.
Point of order. I'm not seeing a borrow authority here. Is it there? Do we have an article for that?
Jack,
Is that what you,
Is it
I
a
think I
point of
could speak to
inquiry?
that. Perhaps Glenn could speak to that as well. I believe that there has been case law which indicates boards possess that authority under statute and therefore do
Don't have
not
to
need
ask.
to request it annually from the voters.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
so I'm gonna apologize because I think I'm a little lost because I thought that we had to approve every article as a board. Can we just have these articles written and then we just approve the warning? Is that right, David?
David, we've lost you.
Molly, last night we did ours separately. And that's the way I just did my motion. So you need 7, 8, and 9. You need 7 for 100,000 for for fiscal year 24 and 100,000 for fiscal year 25. Because that's what I just did in my motion. And that one that she just approved.
I'm going to try and answer that question, Molly. I believe
Thank
if
you.
you put a motion on the floor to adopt a warning or approve a warning, as has just been described, the board can vote it up, the board can vote it down. If the board votes it down, then we're going to have to go through it article by article.
So as soon as Andy gets these put up here, we can just have a motion to accept the warnings as written.
But we don't have a quorum. Doing the individual ones is better. Get them done.
Andy's finishing them up, so let's give
24.
him a,
We don't have to vote on 23, Andy. It's fiscal year 24.
So I guess I'm at a loss, Priscilla, because when I was writing this and as I was reading it off, this was the recommendation from Glenn on how the $200,000 would be used, because you cannot tell future boards how to spend those dollars. But if you're saying
No,
you want
because your taxpayers are voting on it. The taxpayers
okay,
can't.
okay,
That's
okay,
why
okay.
it's a motion.
All right, so you're saying you want that the motion is $100,000 for 24, and then a second one for $100,000 for 25.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page. That's all.
Yeah, because then the taxpayers are voting it and they have the right to vote it.
Okay. So that would be Article 7, which is $100,000 for fiscal year 2024, $100,000 for fiscal year 2025, and $222,000 for capital improvements. And I know I summarized those, so I can read them if you would like me to.
So I think David has just taken a lot of pain off us. The warnings are written, the article are there, everyone should have them on their screen. So let's have a motion to approve the warning for the annual meeting for the Union High School with the articles listed below.
Molly, just
Yes.
For clarification, we would like to move Article 6 down below, just as a visual, because it looks.
That's perfect.
So if we're in agreement on that, we'll change the numbering.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Priscilla, can you make that motion and get Deb back on the phone?
Okay, I make the motion that we accept the warrant and send it to the voters. That correct? Did I do it right or wrong?
Motion to accept the warning for the annual Union High School District number 27 with the articles as written.
I'll call her.
Andy,
Yes,
the amount of ed spending per equalized pupil,
yes.
if I have 18,669.
All right, that's what I was a little worried about, was the sheet not working? Hang on.
I started with 7,310,950. We have $142,942 in revenues. The surplus money and the money from Haverhill. So I have ed spending of $7,168,008. And
I don't, yeah, I'm not
And
sure what
three-
happened to my sheet as I was doing it, because I'm working on the sheet right in.
and 383.95 equalized pupils.
Hang on.
I'm sorry.
No, it's my apologies. So let me, so say again, Glenn, at the top at line 1, 7,310,950, correct?
Yes.
Line 2 is 0. Let me just share screen and we'll walk through it. I don't know why.
The only reduction is on line 9.
Right? which is-
142,942.
Right,
So we have ed spending of 7,168,000.
yeah, see, why is that?
What do you have for equalized pupils?
Equalized pupil, it's 38395.
Yes,
But see, I'm just plugging it in the system and it's coming up with this 6.
you didn't put any other numbers in lines 3 through 9.
Line 3 is the adopted.
Yeah, that should be 7,3.
Yeah. And then it's got the total union budget and it's got a 7, that number's. I mean, I can, if I just zero it all out, see, something's not clearing. That's what's happening here.
Right.
So let me pull up a new sheet so I can. Oh, dear.
Now that we've done this, I have a question, Molly. I'm looking at the sheet and it says number 4, obligation to a regional technical center school district of any, and that's where we put it in before, not in the budget that was at the top. That's where the problem is.
Probably shouldn't have.
So let me get to. All right, I'm gonna. I think this makes more sense here, and then this is. Does that look right, Glenn? So Molly,
Yes.
the percentage or the equalized pupil spending would be $18,669.24, which is what you tried to
Okay.
correct me on.
Yeah,
The
that
sheet-
is what you had told me.
The sheet I was using had this number, line 6 was it computed something different and held on to it. And so that was throwing the whole formula off. So I do
Okay.
apologize.
That's okay. As long as we get it fixed, that's why we ask each other.
Okay, let me, Molly, do you want Deb's vote?
We are voting, Deb, on approving the articles as written.
What,
Yeah.
Molly,
Yes.
there's still that Article 10 to transact any other business. How are we doing that if this is all gonna be by Australian ballot? Should that just be removed?
Well, so we are going to
No,
have a
that's
meeting
at
on,
our meeting, Molly.
we're gonna have a we're going to have a meeting in February, I think the 23rd. And so if there's anyone in the hall that wants to speak, they can speak to Article 10.
Okay,
Okay, Deb, what's your vote?
Ah, she's gone again. She voted yes a minute ago.
David?
Yes.
Thank you. Jason?
I cannot physically see the articles, so I'm gonna abstain.
Priscilla?
Yes,
Jack?
I'm going to abstain because I don't think those other articles are written properly, but otherwise, it's fine. You get the votes.
So I just need a vote from Deb.
Yeah, she told you while you were on there, but she left after she told you.
She said yes, so we have 4 yes and 2 abstain. The warnings have been approved.
Mercy.
Hopefully next year this is a little smoother. I appreciate Glenn and Andy, all your help. I know this hasn't been easy and everybody's stuck with it, so thank you, everyone. Do we have any
My
director's
apologies.
comments or can we adjourn?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I just want to be, Molly, I'd like to address you and the board chair, and I want to be perfectly clear that I am in full support of Andy. He's done a great job of cleaning up the mess that he was handed. And Mr. Broadley has done a great job so far. And we discussed last year, teacher to student ratio, and we were higher than others. And if there is a performance issue and we're a little fat, then I fully trust Mr. Broadley and Mr. Haas will take care of that. So, and I am also very aware that teachers have not gotten an increase in a very long time, and they absolutely deserve a hefty one. So I just want to be very clear on where I stand. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? I don't see any hands up. I'd like to call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.